Hi, how are you? We have a special guest today. He's Zoltán Kovács, Secretary of State for International Communications and Relations from Hungary. How are you?
Very, very nice talking to you. I'm very fine. How are you?
Okay. What Prime Minister Viktor Orbán thinks about the future of European Union?
Well, as you might know, there's a heated debate about the future of the European Union in Europe as we speak. As a matter of fact, for the past couple of weeks and months, there was a series of debates all over Europe. As a matter of fact, in Hungary, we have organized almost 100 such occasions. And clearly there are differences in view, especially between the Western European countries and Central European countries, not to tell Hungary. Most in Western Europe believe that the future of the European Union is a United States of Europe kind of complete integration of traditional 100 years old territorial sovereign states of Europe. In face of that, Hungary's belief is that the future of Europe should remain as its past was, and that is the effective and successful cooperation of sovereign member states, because a strong European Union only is possible through strong member states. You know, the history of Europe is a key to this. We all believe that there are limits for integration because of the inherited past, the social, economic, geographic environment in which we live, even in a small continent like Europe, are so different, say in France and Hungary, in Germany and Spain, that it's impossible to fully integrate. Integration should come with respect to the local and national traditions, and with the local and national assets, if it's about the advantages or disadvantages of different regions. So this mutual respect is the key to the success of Europe. So this is the basic outline of the differences. One is basically a federalist, and that is a United States of Europe kind of view. Our view is based on the national stance, and that is a sovereigntist approach, which desires and goes for maintaining the national sovereignty of member states.
Thank you. George Soros was born in Hungary. You must know him very well. He just has recognized that he has invested in the promotion of abortion. He's very upset now that the United States Supreme Court overturned the Roe versus Wade case. What is your point of view about it?
The attitude towards these heated issues like abortion or other social issues are very different in different parts of the globe. And for a period of time, it seemed to be that the United States is going to be the leading force if it's about so-called human rights and basic rights of people, including abortion. So this decision comes in face of that image, if you like, which has been exacerbated by Mr. Soros and by other, especially NGOs, the NGO world actually, that is financed by people who believe in an open society. We have lots of debates with open society, in many respects, including and relating to the respect of human life, how we relate to pregnancy, how we relate to the traditional family. You should know that in Hungary, by the constitution, abortion you have a right for. So this debate in Hungary is not open. But our stance is very simple and very similar to the decisions in many respects of the United States Supreme Court, and that is we respect life. And we would like to avoid the loss of lives, whichever direction it is coming from, because the key to the development and the traditional family is indeed to have as many kids as possible. So human responsibility cannot be avoided and disregarded here. And with full respect to human life, the Hungarian stance is that it's better to avoid these interactions or these interference into an individual's body, but also into a social cohesion. And that is only possible through social and human responsibility.
Thank you. Okay. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has claimed that Soros has a plan to bring immigrants to Hungary to destabilize the nation. Can you explain how that plan works, please?
We have already mentioned this, if you like, the Soros universe's approach to human rights. And one fundamental element of that approach, of the NGO world that has been built and raised for the past couple of decades around the globe, including the United States, Northern America, but also Europe, is that migration, and that is changing the place of your the place where you would like to live, is a natural human right. And we believe that this is simply not true, not only by international treaties, as we take a look at to the international environment in which taking care about refugees is basically built up by the legal standards that are applicable to all, but also by the very attitude and perspective from which especially NGOs and human rights groups are viewing this. And I think the best example of how Hungary relates to this is the war in Ukraine, because we exactly know our responsibility if it's about refugees proper, and that is if it's about especially women and children fleeing their countries for their lives. We are taking care of them. In the case of Ukraine, we have taken care of over 800,000 people so far. And it happened to Hungary a couple of years, maybe decades ago, and the Southern Slavic Wars, the Yugoslavian wars, were also sending people through the borders to Hungary. But these are the immediate borders. And we know the historical responsibility towards immediate neighbors, towards those who are fleeing wars. But intercontinental mass migration is a completely different topic. As you well know, Hungary has suffered greatly, actually, back in 2015, the effects of global migration, because it was over 400,000 people who crossed the borders, flew through the country to Western Europe in hope of a better life. So our perception regarding illegal migration and proper refugees is very simple. Proper refugees are running for their lives from the immediate vicinity of countries to the first safe country, as international treaties suggest. And migrants are crossing borders illegally, disregarding the rules, the principles of movement around the globe, with other considerations in mind, and namely those considerations are usually material, and that is the hope of a better life. So you have to differentiate between the two, and our attitude again is very simple. If it's about the rules, you have to follow the rules, and that is, it's impossible to accept, not to tolerate that people are not following the rules. They disregard everything actually regarding borders, documents, international treaties, and freely choose the destination for the future life.
Thank you. Okay. Globalism and progressivism seem to be the main problems in Europe, and both things are working together to destroy faith, family, natural marriage, heterosexuality, and private property. How the Orban government is working to fight that?
I believe you are right. In many respects, the so-called progressives in Europe are basically the equivalent of the woke culture in Northern America. And we all know that the woke culture is about destroying everything traditional, everything that we have inherited socially, even economically, certainly culturally, from our past. And we conservatives, Christian Democrats, those who know about the value of inherited, historical, social structures and legacies, we all know that without your past, without the historical elements of your life, you're no one for the present, and certainly you can build your future. And I believe this is the first, if you like, ideological, philosophical dividing line between us and the so-called progressives. How we can fight progressives? I believe the first thing is standing by the traditional values we've been talking about, and that is traditional family, those natural, law-based, hard and simple facts on the ground by which nature and society is working. not to surpass them, not to go against them, not to try to get rid of them, because that would ruin social structures and the future of your social existence. And also, we have chosen a path very consistently and very carefully back 12 years ago, by which we were able to build up if you like, an administrative and state structure, which is carrying this respect for values and tradition, and also implements actual steps, policy steps actually on the ground by which it can be done. If you take a look at the Hungarian family benefit and family allowance system, it has all started back in 2010 with a flat tax introduced for personal income. And for the past 12 years, we have built up a system which is spending over 5 or rather 6% of the Hungarian GDP on family-related allowances and issues. This is one example actually of how we relate to this, but also I can mention to you that our approach, if it's about the labor market, and that is, we believe that the way ahead, and that is socially, economically, and certainly family-wise, is through jobs, and that is creating new jobs. For the past 10, 12 years. We have created 1 million new jobs at the Hungarian labor market. We believe is a major achievement. To tell you one example, we have started with an employment rate, which is even more important than unemployment, which was 11.4 back in 2010. So employment rate was only 54%. And that is only every second able-bodied Hungarian had a job. Today, that ratio is up to 75%. And that tells you a lot about how we take care of social structures. You know, we care about active employment, and that is that people don't live on aid and social benefits, but live on their own job. The more they work, the more they're going to earn. So these are the steps by which you can take care of the institutions. And also, if you take a look at the Hungarian constitutional system, we've reached back to those elements of our constitutional history that are workable. And that is that help us keep our traditions, but at the same time are flexible enough to continue and look to the future, and that is adapt to the challenges we are facing. The point is that conservatism, and that is the respect for traditions and values, can, by all means, can become up to date with the challenges of our modern times.
Thank you. What is your opinion on Russia's war against Ukraine, and what is Hungary's position?
Well, Hungary was among the first who clearly announced that we regard the steps on behalf of Russia as an aggression. So responsibility for the outbreak of the war is unquestionably with Russia. At the same time, we all immediately asked for common sense to prevail, and that is re-establish truce and peace talks as soon as possible. Needless to say, Ukraine is the neighbor of Hungary, so we have the immediate effects of the war, we like it or not. So we know how to take care of those who are fleeing war, as we have already mentioned. We have taken care of over 800,000 people who have fled Ukraine, and we all know a lot about what is happening there because of the 150,000 Hungarians who live across the borders. They've been living there for centuries, so they've always been part of that part of Ukraine. So even from that perspective, and very certainly from the geopolitical, geostrategic perspective, Hungary's best interest is the territorial sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine. This is the stance, if you like, on political issues and sovereignty issues. And at the same time, which is also coming from the effects I've already mentioned, and that is the existence of a very large Hungarian minority across the borders, is the fact that we don't participate in supplying arms to Ukraine. It would be against the Hungarian national interest, certainly against the interests of those Hungarians who live across the border, because as the Russians have announced, all weapons that are being sent to Ukraine are considered as a legitimate target. So that would bring the war immediately to the Hungarian border, or could bring the war immediately to the other side of the border. We only ask actually Ukraine and others to respect this Hungarian position, because it means that though we are not supplying arms and we refuse to let arms directly through Hungary to the neighborhood, at the same time we take full responsibility for everyone who is fleeing Ukraine, and we help by all means that is possible on behalf of Hungary.
Thank you. The CPAC Hungary was held only on the 19th and 20th of May. First time CPAC is held in Europe. What conclusions were obtained in this event where you participated as a speaker?
I can tell you that it was, apart from having a great pleasure and honor to welcome CPAC in Europe and within Europe in Hungary, very definitely there were some very actual handheld consequences and lessons we have all learned. And I wanted to call your attention to the Prime Minister's summary of what we have achieved in Hungary and how that can be used by a conservative international audience. You know, conservatives tend to differ from progressives, the woke culture people, and internationalist leftist parties and people in Europe or around the globe. Because as I suggested, the left, the political left, by definition is internationalist. So they always find those common issues, you know, the idealist rather than ideological, in many times idealist and utopian targets by which they would like to organize their decision-making, policy-making, and political credo. In face of that, conservatives are different because, as we have spoken about that, we do take care of our own, if you like, national cultures, traditions, and perspectives. Very definitely, there are going to be differences between conservatives, even in Europe, not to talk around the globe. Therefore, if you wanted to have a common voice, if you wanted to have common policy making and common ideas, you have to concentrate on what connects us. And I believe even among conservatives, there are some fundamental issues and elements that connect us. And this is what we have to concentrate on. This was the suggestion of the Prime Minister, and this is my suggestion and my lesson actually from my contribution, but also my experience as a government spokesman. You have to find those couple of things. You don't even need more than half a dozen that connect conservatives. Fundamental family values, social values we've been talking about, attitudes toward illegal migration, which obviously are going to come as similar around the globe if it's about a conservative approach, economic policies, regarding taxation, how the future of families and individuals can be imagined in an effective society. So these kind of half a dozen issues will provide ample opportunities and the common ground for cooperation for conservatives. We don't have to agree on everything because of the geographical, geopolitical differences and distances, but we do have enough and ample opportunities to work together.
Okay, just to end, a few days ago it took place in Budapest, the event called the Fourth Transatlantic Summit for Defense of Life, Family and Freedom, where José Antonio Cast, the former candidate for president of Chile, was named president of the Political Network for Values. What the people can expect from this organization?
Hungary, from the very beginning of the governing efforts of Mr. Orbán in 2010, is playing an active part in pro-family policies globally. We are connected to US, Mexican, and other transatlantic groups actually who work in that field. But very obviously, we work together with Western European, but even African, Asian groups and governments actually in that field. The devotion, as we have already touched upon, comes not only in words, in ideology, and in conferences, but in effective steps for family life, traditional families. Let me remind you that in Hungary, the definition of the family, the traditional family, is included in the constitution. We never have imagined that it should be included, but certainly it is. And this is clearly a sign that Hungary is very much devoted actually to remain part of and play an active role in these kind of activities, welcoming conferences, giving the floor for speakers, but at the same time showing and giving an example how things can be effectuated, and that is put into a political program and into effect.
Thank you very much, Zoltán Kovács. Thank you very much for all.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.